an address by His Excellency Abdullah Hamdok, Prime Minister of the Republic of Sudan.
The Prime Minister, Dr. Abdullah Hamdok, on Friday addressed the 74th session of the UN General Assembly, stressing that the cessation of war and realization of just, inclusive and durable peace come top in the challenges facing the transitional civil government in Sudan.
We remain committed to maintaining international peace and security. The transitional government believes that relations among nations must be based on mutual and common interests, as well as positive cooperation for the good of the people. Our world, with its resources and its wealth, is large enough for all of us, so that we can all live in prosperity and in peace.
The Prime Minister has framed Sudan's government's endeavor in the transitional period to put Sudan in an advanced position in the process for realizing the sustainable goals by advent of the year 2030.
Mr. President, the Sudanese government during the transitional period will seek to put the Sudan back on the track of development towards achieving the SDGs by 2030. We support the title of the current session, focused on poverty eradication, quality education, and climate action, by launching a comprehensive national development plan based on economic governance, combating corruption, committing to transparency and integrity, and a judicious planning of our natural resources.
Dr. Abdullah Hamdok has called on the United States to remove Sudan from its list of countries sponsoring terrorism and not to continue punishing the Sudanese people for sin committed by a regime that has harmed them, and lately they succeeded to topple it and to rescue the world from its evils.
Let me be clear, the Sudanese people has never been a sponsor or a supporter of terrorism. It was the regime, the former regime, that supported terrorism, and the Sudanese people revolted against it. These sanctions have caused tremendous suffering to our people. Therefore, we call on the United States to remove the Sudan from the list of state sponsor of terrorism and to stop punishing the people of the Sudan for crimes committed by the former regime.
For the transitional period in Sudan.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, the Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok, and the African Union High Commissioner Moussa Faki on Friday addressed the high-level event celebrating a new Sudan at UN headquarters in the sideline of the 74th session of the UN General Assembly.
The transition is not the end of the journey, but marks the start of Sudan's long road to socio-economic recovery and to the achievement of sustainable peace and inclusive development that will benefit all of Sudan's diverse and vibrant society. This has been a Sudanese-led process from the beginning, supported by the mediation efforts of the African Union and Ethiopia, and I want to express to the African Union my deep gratitude and deep appreciation for the excellent work that was done, creating the conditions or facilitating the conditions for the success of the transition.
That the agreements that were signed say that among the tasks that your government must undertake is the need to make peace with armed movements in the first 6 months of the transition. In this respect, we, as you do, welcome the holding of initial consultations in Juba between the transitional authorities and armed movements. The African Union is supporting this process and expresses its full readiness to accompany you to ensure that they come to fruition. The economic and humanitarian challenges are particularly striking in your country. The debt burden is unbearable. Concerted and rapid action from international economic and financial institutions must be put together as quickly as possible to drastically reduce or purely and simply cancel that debt. It is urgent for your development partners and friends to mobilize according to the most effective procedures to achieve this and to open up genuine prospects for economic recovery to alleviate the suffering of the country.
Let me just briefly to share with you the priorities of the transitional period. After a long, challenging process, we started the strong footing and grounds on establishing our transitional structures. We put in place the Sovereignty Council of 11 members. We put the civilian cabinet of around 20 members. The priorities of this revolution was by and large informed by the deeply rooted slogan of the revolution, which is captured in the freedom, peace, and justice. So let me just briefly outline our priorities. Number one and top priority, stopping the war and building solid ground for sustainable peace. I think the time of achieving peace is now. And I think we are moving in the right direction to achieve precisely that. My first visit outside Khartoum was to Juba because of the special relationship we have with the South. We are one nation in two states. I met with the leadership, President Salva Kiir and all his leaders, his top leaders. But also it was an opportunity for me to meet the leadership of the armed groups. We consider all of them as part of this change. We are talking to ourselves. They contributed to this change, and I think there is an opportunity and the will and determination on both sides to achieving peace in a record time. The second most important priority is to address the economic crisis and reviving the national economy. Sudan is a very rich country. We don't need handouts. What we need is opening up the country for business, prosperity, and all that. And I think working together with our partners, we could achieve that. Reforming state structures and institutions is a top priority. Building solid foundation for the establishment of the rule of law, transparency, accountability, justice, and particularly transitional justice that is firmly linked to the peace process. Combating corruption and addressing issues of the recovery of the stolen asset. We think it's stand in billions. Work towards, which I alluded to earlier, fair and well-deserved women participation and representation in the transitional government structures. We're very proud to have 2 women in the Sovereign Council out of 11, but also one of them is from our Coptic community, small minority, but this is a symbol in our determination to address our diversity in all this. Then also in the ministerial cabinet, we have 4 women in the cabinet. I'm sure my colleague Bumizeli will be very happy with that. But also, we gave Sudan its first female foreign minister. Very proud of this. I will entertain a few questions.
The Prime Minister, Dr. Abdullah Hamdok, on Friday held a press conference following the high-level event celebrating a new Sudan at UN headquarters in the sideline of the 74th session of the UN General Assembly. Hamdok said he had held useful talks with US officials while at the United Nations this week and expressed hope Khartoum could reach an agreement to be removed from Washington's state-sponsored terrorism list very soon.
We are extremely delighted and happy that we could never ask for more in terms of support. Speaker after speaker reiterated their support to the Sudanese cause, aspiration and hopes. What is left in this, we hope, those words that express the support will be translated into actions and deed. And I think we would expect that from the international community. I think Sudan coming back to the normal situation and the dawn that happened in the country rightly should be rewarded with this. On the meeting with the Americans on the state sponsoring terrorism, coming to the General Assembly provided us with a huge opportunity to meet with many leaders in the American administration. We had very useful discourse and discussion on the issue of state sponsoring terrorism list. We hope as we move forward, we will be able to conclude, and very soon, an agreement that would allow Sudan to be delisted. As I said earlier, this is key to anything we do. It will be an important issue in addressing debt issues, in addressing investment, opening the country and all that. And I think with the expressed support by the international community, by everybody, I am sure our friends in America are listening, and we would expect precisely that the Sudan people should be rewarded with their name being removed. As I said earlier, the new Sudan that is upholding human rights, good governance, democracy, is not a threat to any nation in the world.
The Prime Minister, Abdullah Hamdok, met on Tuesday Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly High-Level Week in New York City. Wang conveyed congratulations from Chinese leaders on Hamdok, who took the new post. Wang said that China welcomes Sudan's new stage of development and positive progress in its transitional period. According to Wang, this year marks the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Hamdok asked Wang Yi to convey his regards and wishes to Chinese leaders. He said that Sudan-China relations go a long way back, and the two peoples have a fraternal, profound friendship. The Sudanese people will never forget China's great contribution to Africa's independence and liberation, and its precious assistance to Africa's security and development, he added. Prime Minister Dr. Abdullah Hamdok has met the UAE Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan on the sidelines of the 74th session of the UN General Assembly in New York. The meeting discussed the bilateral relations between Sudan and the United Arab Emirates and exchanged views on a number of regional and international issues of mutual concern in the agendas of the 47th session of the Assembly. Dr. Hamdok affirmed Sudan's keenness to strengthen further its bilateral relations and cooperation with the United Arab Emirates for the benefit of the two peoples, wishing further progress and prosperity for the United Arab Emirates. The Prime Minister Dr. Abdullah Hamdok met in New York Monday with the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, on the sidelines of the meetings of the 47th session of the UN General Assembly. Hamdok has praised the pivotal role of Qatar in peace process in Darfur and its stances in supporting Sudan.